What is up, YouTube's Mountain Man Magic, and I've been chewing on these 2019 precons a bit more, and in doing so, it's brought up some thoughts around how I view these precon decks in regards to the reprints they should or could have. I haven't really thought about where I fall in that grading of if they should have no reprints or just jam-packed with high-value ones, but I think these precon kits should have reprints, and my main reason being that if they reprint these high-value, highly desirable cards, that it'll keep them more accessible, especially to newer players. And I think that's where a lot of the criticisms came in for these products, because folks were expecting a dramatic improvement over last year. In my mind, that had me thinking there'd be a $15 plus-ish card, one of those in each of the precons. We didn't get something like that. If you didn't watch my last video on if you should buy the precons, again, I'm happy with these. I like them. I think they look strong and just a lot of fun out of the box. I think the value is solid as well. My goal from this is not to whine or throw shade, just to give suggestions on what could be better the next year. I don't think it's hard to be critical. So if you're going to be critical, you got to give some suggestions. You got to help better the process or the product or whatever it is you're being critical of, because then you are just whining. Like if you're just, you know what I mean? Taking a second look with a more critical eye, these are the cards that I feel could have been reprinted in Commander 2019. Let's get into it. Okay, to start, let's just jump right into it. I think the lockets could have been replaced with just better alternatives, because if you've been playing recently, you probably have more than enough of these things lying around, and signets would have been far better. I think they're just cards that you want to play when we're looking at mana rocks in just about any commander deck that they fit the colors for. If you're newer to Commander or even a more tenured Commander player, these are cards you're just happy to have in your collection. And with the signets, I think some stones could have been reprinted as well. Felwar Stone, Mind Stone. These, again, are just cards that you're happy to play in a lot of Commander decks. But then moving on to some more expensive cards, especially cards that are specific to Commander. Teferi's Protection and Command Beacon are two cards that just feel far more expensive than they should. If they were printed to be played in Commander, but then Commander players don't have access to them because they're just so expensive, that feels, something feels off there to me. Like Teferi's Protection is what, like $40, $50-ish a pop? That seems excessive. And honestly, I don't even like the card very much because it feels so strong, but it also feels like one that if it's meant to be played in Commander, I'd rather everyone just have access to it instead of just the people that can afford it. Same goes for Command Beacon. And maybe it's because I'm just jealous because I didn't play back when the, 2015-ish precons came out. One of y'all will correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they're too, but I guess if they don't get reprinted in Commander, I don't know where else they would be reprinted. Those are pricey options, sure. I guess that's what I'm getting at, but you'll never go wrong with cards like Eternal Witness. Like that could fit into every green deck. And again, you're never going to feel like I have too many Eternal Witnesses because every green deck you build, you probably want one of those in it. Now the land bases are the most criticized, or at least what I'm reading, seem to be the most criticized element of these precons. And some workaround for that could be some artifacts like Chromatic Lantern. Again, you could throw that in every 3+ color Commander precon, because I don't know, have I said it yet that you wouldn't really be too unhappy having multiple of those in your collection floating in a binder? Oh, hey, I'm gonna build a 3 or 4 color Commander deck. Look, an extra Chromatic Lantern laying around. Boom. Life's good. And then I think one of my crazier suggestions is that we should just have Prismatic Vista in every 3+ color Commander deck. Call me crazy, I don't blame you, but this does not feel like a $25 card, or that it should be a $25 card. And it's nice to just have an option to fetch an untapped basic land that just helps fix whatever mana situation you're in. To me, this is a card that will always fit in that $5 to $10 price range, but could use a reprint sooner than later. Granted, Modern Horizons is still in print, I get that, but you know. Well, I guess if it's still in print, why not throw like a foil playset of Wrenn and 6 and just see people's reactions? I don't know, just ideas, just something I'm thinking about. That would be a reason to call me crazy. But anyway, the last suggestion I have before moving into the deck specific suggestions, these would have just been great to have the Battle Bond land show up in. Like those, again, are Commander specific type cards. Just reprint them. They're just good value. They're cards you want in multicolor decks. I think those are cards that, hey, look, I'm buying a precon. There's cards in it that I'm always gonna be happy to own. Battle Bond lands, I would have been stoked. Okay, let's start with the Faceless Menace deck. Cloudstone Curio, I think would have been a lot of fun in this deck. And my reason being, let's take a step back. If you remember playing games that kind of taught you how to play the game when you were in it, I think this card is, especially if you're a newer player, you might see this card and think, why is this good? But then you play it and you start seeing the synergy that it creates, the value it can provide. And to me, that's like, oh, I've always kind of seen bouncing stuff as a bad thing for whoever it was happening to. Now I can see in this where cards have these enter the battlefield effects, where I can flip stuff over and then return it and then put it back down, flip it up again. I just like the idea of the game showing someone how to play the game better in the game. And I think Cloudstone Curio would be a cool card to do that with. And it's pretty pricey, so, you know. reprinted, maybe. All Is Dust, I think that's just a strong card that would have been great to include, and it's a card that's getting up there in price. It's a $10-ish card, somewhere in there. And I'll make suggestions like this for the other decks, but Wizards did a great job making sure that just about every card in the deck fit the theme or the mechanic, but I think you could just reprint cards that are objectively good. Like Rhystic Study. It seems to be a card that everyone's happy to play in a blue deck. I think Rhystic Study would have been a fine reprint option. Then on to Mystic Intellect. I'm just going to jump into the biggest, crazier reprint that I would like to see, and that's Monastery Mentor, because, well, it's a great creature with all kinds of synergy because of that whole prowess thing. It fits so well in this deck. I would love to play it in place of something like Fervent Denial, because that card could just be cut for really anything. Okay, that's probably a bit selfish on the reprint scale, but something that's a bit more realistic in the $5-6 range would be Past in Flames. Be a great reprint in this deck for flashing stuff back. I like the card. Swan Song, there's another $5 card that fit really well in any blue deck like this. One of my patrons said Vandal Blast. That's a solid red card that you could use in most commander decks. Usually, it probably hates on one deck too specifically, and it's not good as just an auto include. Smothering Tithe would be great in this deck because a lot of these spells are pretty high cost and it goes well in, well, I guess any white deck, but it provides mana that this deck clearly needs to do all that flashing back. I know people have said stuff like Cyclonic Rift. I honestly don't like the card. So it doesn't make my list. I'm gonna throw it up here, but when they're talking about this card getting banned, I would not be upset to see it banned. Full disclosure, I don't own any of this card either, so for whatever that means. Then next up we have Primal Genesis. And when I saw this being a token deck, doing the populate thing, I would have bet that we'd see something like Anointed Procession or Parallel Lives. I get Doubling Season, maybe it's just too much. It was just in Battle Bond. It's fair enough. But I was pretty surprised to see none of these make the cut. Cathar's Crusade, that was another card that I was really hoping because we're obviously having a lot of creatures enter the battlefield. This is just a great card that you're happy to have. I was hoping it would make an appearance as well with how many creatures we're going to have ET being. And then flavor-wise, I got to say one of the bigger flavor-wise misses has to be Beastmaster's Ascension. It's so on point with this deck. It feels like this would have been the first card. Someone's like, hey, we're doing a populate deck, Naya colors, crazy, angry rage dude. Great. Got a card for you, Beastmaster's Ascension. Any green deck is usually happy playing something like Burgeoning or Exploration to help with ramp. I think there's an argument that green already has enough ramp, so I wouldn't harp on those too much. And the more I talk about this, the more I think about it, there's so many cards. It's like the more I say, the more I think about it, more cards just keep coming to mind. Like, hey, what about this? Wouldn't that work? I would not consider myself a commander expert by any means, but you play Magic with enough people, they show you the cards they have, and you start thinking, oh, that's a pretty cool card. Oh, it's 25 bucks. That could use a reprint. You know what I mean? Like, this is not easy. It's clearly hard work. And I don't even know what the design constraints are that the people at Wizards have to follow. And every year, more variables just keep flooding in that you have to take into account when designing a product like this. So again, this is not easy stuff. All right, enough tangents. The last deck, Madness, Vampire stuff. Phyrexian Arena is a great card that goes in any black deck, and it'd be a solid reprint. I think it's been in a commander deck before, but you'd never be unhappy to see this card in a precon. Something that I think goes well with the Madness concept could have been the Toxic Deluge. So this one is even better in my opinion. It's more on flavor, even though it is quite a bit more expensive. But then another huge flavor miss, Rise of the Dark Realms. Feels like a missed opportunity. This is one of those ideal commander cards that it feels like you're never upset to see played. Like, this is what commander's all about. Playing massive cards that you can't play in any other format, that you build up to and people are like, you know what? 9 CMC? Yeah, that's gonna change the game a little bit. Things just shifted in your direction. And you know what? You deserve it. And for the art alone, Reforge the Soul, I think should have been in here. That looks beautiful. That is a fantastic looking card. But to wrap this up, I genuinely think these are all still worth buying. I think whoever did buy these is going to crack them open, sleeve them up, and have a lot of fun playing them. But I think the criticisms come because you see Seedborn Muse as one of the first reprints announced or spoiled, and people see, oh wow, like a $10+ card being spoiled right away. That's where we're starting. We're only going up from here. $15, $20 cards are definitely on the horizon. And then we kind of slid backwards from there, right? Like $10 reprint was the peak of what to expect in these precons. So I don't think Wizards did themselves any favors in that regard, but I think people are kind of overreacting. I think if each deck had 1 or 2 Battle Bond lands, that this narrative dramatically shifts. And hey, at the end of the day, if you don't agree with me on where these decks should fall on the value line, chain, gradient, you can at least use this video as an idea of where to upgrade your deck or where to start with those upgrades. If you bought some or all of these and are looking for a way to improve them, hopefully this gives you some ideas, what to look at, what to run with. So to leave you with a question, what deck do you think looks the weakest, or what deck do you think is in the most need of some upgrades? Or do you have some ideas around upgrades or cards you wish would have been reprinted? Let me know down in the comments. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope life's treating you well. Hope to see you in the next video. Take it easy. Peace.